Imagine settling into your favorite armchair, the warm glow of the studio lights bathing the set in a nostalgic haze, as Johnny Carson's velvet voice ushers you into an evening of laughter, charm, and the unexpected. For decades, Carson held late-night television in the palm of his hand. His quick wit, disarming smile, and effortless banter made him an icon. But behind that polished facade lay a man with very real limits. Tonight, we're counting down the guests who pushed Johnny Carson past the point of no return, the celebrities he simply couldn't stand. You'll laugh, you'll gasp, and you absolutely won't believe who claimed the top spot. Our journey begins at number 10. These early entries set the tone, respect, admiration, but also hidden tensions that would bubble to the surface. We'll explore backstage rivalries, on-air embarrassments, and the razor-thin line between playful ribbing and outright betrayal. So lean in tight, because we're about to reveal the first two sparks that ignited Carson's private fury. Number 10, Joan Rivers. At first glance, Joan Rivers seemed like the ideal Tonight Show guest and protege. Bold, razor-sharp, and fearless in her comedy, she fit right into Johnny's world. Carson even named her his chosen stand-in, trusting her to carry the late-night torch when he took nights off. But ambition, as they say, can be a double-edged sword. In 1986, Rivers made a daring move, accepting a rival talk show offer from Fox without giving Carson a heads-up. Imagine that, the mentor blindsided by his own mentee. Suddenly, the dazzling glow of their on-screen camaraderie flickered and dimmed. Johnny felt betrayed, believing Rivers had broken an unspoken bond of trust. Behind the scenes, he sent word to producers, anyone who appears on her show is persona non grata here. The impact was immediate. Rivers' guests began to dry up, her ratings wavered, and the friendship that launched her career fractured irreparably. It was a lesson carved in neon: hurt Johnny Carson's trust, and you risked vanishing from his kingdom forever. Transitioning from laughter to tension, we slip into number 9. Here, the friction was less about loyalty and more about clashing styles, old-school polish versus improvisational fire. Number 9, Bob Hope. Bob Hope was Hollywood royalty, a living legend whose name preceded him everywhere from the USO circuit to the silver screen. It seemed natural for Carson to invite Hope onto The Tonight Show, aiming to bask in that superstar glow. Yet what looked like a match made in entertainment heaven quickly became a collision of competing philosophies. Hope, beloved but steadfastly reliant on his meticulously scripted material, seemed almost anachronistic next to Carson's ad-lib prowess. One fateful evening, Hope arrived with a stack of cue cards, his own writers in tow, ready to steer the conversation. Carson, who thrived on spontaneity, riffing off audience energy, letting jokes evolve naturally, felt stifled. Behind the curtain, he seeded at what he saw as a lack of authenticity, a refusal to truly engage in the give and take that defined his brand of humor. Stories from the writer's room recount Carson's quip, "If I ever end up like that, deliver me a bullet first." Harsh, perhaps, but reflective of a host unwilling to compromise his creative integrity. The legendary comedian continued to appear sporadically, but each visit carried an undercurrent of tension, two giants circling one another, neither willing to yield an inch. As we close out this opening act, consider the contrast framed between protégés who overreached and legends clinging to old formulas. Both scenarios provoked Johnny's guarded side to emerge, revealing a man as human as he was iconic. We're just warming up. Up next, guests whose on-air missteps and backstage power moves catapulted them further up this countdown, closer to the guest who truly crossed the line. Stay with us for sections 2 and 3, where the stories grow sharper, the stakes higher, and the drama more unforgettable. Moving past the tension between mentors and icons, we descend into a more unpredictable territory where impressions and unexpected punches left Carson reeling. Our next 4 guests found themselves in the eye of the storm not because of betrayal or age-old habits but because their own talents and personalities clashed with Carson's meticulous control of his stage. First up at number 8, the chameleon of comedy, Rich Little. A master of mimicry, Little built his career by embodying the voices and mannerisms of everyone from world leaders to Hollywood's finest. His impressions were so spot-on that audiences marveled at his versatility. Yet what impressed the crowd left Carson deeply unsettled. Behind closed doors, Johnny grew protective of his image. Every time Little unleashed a flawless Carson routine at nightclubs or on other stages, Johnny felt a pinch of indignation, as though his very identity was being borrowed without an invitation. It wasn't instant, early appearances were cordial, even complimentary. But the underlying resentment built until one announcement shattered the polite veneer. In 1982, producers simply stopped booking Little for The Tonight Show, claiming his act had grown stale. Rich later asserted, with a hint of poetic justice, that Johnny's jealousy fueled the ban. And irony reigned supreme when a few years later, HBO tapped Rich Little to play Carson in The Late Shift, effectively paying him to be the man who had tried to silence him. That twist alone might have cracked even Carson's unflappable exterior. Just above our mimicry maestro, at number 7, we have the young, ambitious comic Dana Carvey. Fresh from Saturday Night Live, Carvey arrived at The Tonight Show with a swagger born of growing fame. Carson, ever generous, welcomed him on stage and seemed delighted by his impressions of presidents and pop stars. But Carvey's rocket fuel ambition led him to push boundaries. In a legendary sketch titled Carcinio, Dana lampooned Carson's attempts to stay hip, painting him as a desperate newcomer chasing the cool crowd. That might have stayed within SNL's buffet of targets, but Carvey walked onto Carson's main stage to perform the same bit live, complete with face paint and a mocking grin. The studio lights should have dimmed, but instead a hush fell as the audience sensed Carson's calm cracking. The host's laughter faltered, his polite smile tightened, and that was the end of invites for Carvey. When Wayne's World exploded, Carvey knew The Tonight Show could have amplified his success. Yet Johnny's silent treatment made clear that mocking the king in his own realm had a price no amount of box office pulse could overcome. Our journey continues to number 6, where unpredictability met unequaled bravado in the person of British screen legend Oliver Reed. Known for his unfiltered wit and love of a stiff drink, Reed once turned Carson's studio into what felt like a raucous tavern. Mid-interview, with Carson poised to move the segment along, handed Reed a whiskey. The actor's eyes sparkled with mischief as he recounted outrageous tales of rowdy brawls and impromptu philosophy sessions in London pubs. Shelley Winters, seated alongside, took offense at Reed's colorful anecdotes and, without warning, dumped a goblet of whiskey into the actor's lap. The on-air moment teetered on the brink of chaos, and Carson, visibly uncomfortable, tried to salvage civility. Reed, fueled by indignation and spirits, pressed on, joking about censorship and creative freedom, compelling Carson into forced counterpoints that felt more antagonistic than conversational. The frosty energy lingered long after the credits rolled. Nobody questioned Reed's place in cinematic history, but tonight, he shattered the delicate balance Carson so carefully curated, leaving a cold memory that lingered in the corridors long after the cameras switched off. At number 5, we land in the world of music and social conscience with the radiant Lola Falana, the Queen of Las Vegas. When Falana graced that iconic red couch, she brought glamour, talent, and courage. In the middle of her segment, she spoke candidly on racial discrimination in show business, recalling personal slights that challenged the industry's veneer of unity. Carson, accustomed to light-hearted promotion and safe banter, found himself adrift in heavy waters. He had carved a career by steering clear of cultural divides, preferring quick punchlines over weighty commentary. The shift in tone rattled him, the audience leaned in, intrigued by this earnest conversation. Yet backstage, producers feared they had stepped into volatile territory. Invitations dried up, and despite Falana's continued triumphs on the strip, Johnny's show remained closed to her. Falana's courage in speaking her truth clashed with Carson's preference for harmonious entertainment, a reminder that even the smoothest host had his limits when the script strayed too far into real-world strife. These 4 stories illustrate how mastery can provoke unease, when imitation feels like identity theft, when humor oversteps its bounds, when unpredictability breaks carefully rehearsed rhythms, and when heartfelt truth collides with a host's preference for polished escapism. But we're just 2 steps from the crescendo of Carson's private fury. 4 guests remain, each bearing a unique spark that ignited his ire. Buckle up as we count down to the guest who truly reigns supreme in storming Johnny's late-night castle. The air backstage at The Tonight Show crackled with anticipation as we approached the top half of our countdown. These next 3 guests tested the bounds of Johnny Carson's ironclad control, pitting loyalty against real estate deals, on-screen chemistry against off-screen distance, and playful pranks against hard personal limits. Buckle in for entries 4 through 2, each a story of ambition, misunderstanding, and one razor-sharp push that tipped the scales. Number 4, Wayne Newton. Call him Mr. Las Vegas, but when Wayne Newton paraded onto Carson's couch 30 times, it seemed he'd claimed late-night royalty too. Early appearances saw the 2 men banter like old friends, Newton's smooth vocals following Carson's punchlines in perfect harmony. Behind the velvet curtain, though, tension simmered over a shared obsession, the Aladdin Hotel. In 1980, both men bid to own Vegas's jewel on the Strip. When Newton's offer prevailed, Carson's gracious veneer cracked. Suddenly, monologue jokes once light and playful turned pointed, accusing Newton of everywhere else but fairness. The thinly veiled jabs morphed into downright insinuations about shady ties and mob connections, lines Newton refused to let slide. Reports say Newton stormed Carson's office, delivering a warning cold enough to freeze the casino mats: "Stop this now, or face the fallout." Carson backed off the harshest jokes, but the friendship vanished. The red carpet that had once welcomed Newton now lay rolled up, and invitations for future Tonight Show visits stopped arriving. It was a vivid lesson: cross Johnny in business, and there's no place for you under his spotlight. Number 3, Ed McMahon on camera. Johnny and Ed were inseparable, the perfect comedic duo. Ed's booming laugh and exuberant applause led viewers to believe they were lifelong pals. Backstage, however, the pair were a study in opposites. Ed McMahon thrived in social whirlwinds, cocktail receptions, star-studded galas, and parties that stretched into dawn. Johnny Carson, famously private and selective, retreated from all but the closest confidants, diving into his dressing room once the band struck its final chord. Crew members whispered about dinner invitations Ed extended that Johnny never accepted. The magician's trick was their silent pact: never let personal discord spill on camera. Yet the strain surfaced in hushed hallway conversations. Carson confided in friends that under no circumstances would he share more than professional courtesy with Ed after the lights went down. The real sting? A leaked quote in which Carson admitted he couldn't stand working alongside his own sidekick. Still, mutual respect prevailed. They signed paychecks, shared rehearsals, and delivered nightly magic to millions. What started as platonic chemistry blossomed into an uneasy truce. A reminder that sometimes, two stars align beautifully for the audience even when private gravity pushes them poles apart. Number 2, Charlie Collis comedy gold or unmitigated disaster. Sometimes the difference hung on a single shove. Charlie Collis was a performer unlike any other, famed for rubbery facial expressions and human sound effect wizardry. Audiences adored him, producers raved. Yet one fateful night in 1982, his usual routine fell flat. Collis stepped onto Carson's stage, launched into his trademark gurgles and guttural hiccups, and the room went silent. Johnny, a maestro at rescuing flops with a quick quip, instead responded with a mock bomb whistle, signaling the routine's death. Collis, convinced they were buddies bound by laughs, mistook the gesture for playful teasing and impulsively shoved Carson in the chest. Time froze. The live audience gasped, the studio lights held their breath. Carson's face drained of color before hardening in a glare that could curdle milk. In that split second, a lifetime of goodwill vaporized. Without a word, Johnny pronounced the verdict: "You're off the show forever." Collis tried to laugh it off, to apologize amid the stunned hush, but the damage was irreversible. In the blink of an eye, one spontaneous push undone decades of career goodwill. For Carson, the lesson was unambiguous: border-crossing gestures, even in jest, were sacrosanct lines you could not approach. And for performers, it underscored the peril of misreading a host's tolerance. As the tension peaks, we stand at the summit, the guest whose presence tested Carson's composure like no other. One who didn't merely rub him the wrong way but toppled the boundaries of affection and annoyance, producing a showdown for the ages. Up next, who wears the crown of Carson's greatest nemesis? Stay tuned, because at number 1, the story doesn't just sizzle, it explodes. And now, the moment you've been waiting for: who claimed the number 1 spot on our list of guests Johnny Carson simply couldn't stand? It might surprise you, because this is not a tale of betrayal born from ambition, nor a fluke of clashing comedic styles. Instead, it is the story of a friendship that thrived on mutual mischief, a relationship built on razor-sharp wit, and a single incident that became the crown jewel of late-night legend. At the heart of it stands Don Rickles, the man they called the Merchant of Venom. But before you imagine a bitter feud, know this: it was a fascination as much as it was frustration, a game of jabs exchanged between two masters of comedic timing. Rickles arrived on the Tonight Show scene like a cannonball loaded with one-liners. His insults were lightning strikes, delivered with a grin so wide you wanted to laugh even as you winced. Johnny Carson, for his part, admired Rickles' audacity. They shared the stage with sparkling chemistry, each fueling the other's energy. They poked fun at endless targets, each other included, but always walked away with applause. The audience sensed the electric thrill of unpredictability,
Sitting beside Rickles was akin to entering a wild stand-up theater where anything could happen.
What no one foresaw was the fragility of that playful trust.
Hidden beneath the laughter was a treasure chest of personal quirks, tiny artifacts that Carson held dear.
Among them was his cherished cigarette box, a smooth wooden case he carried from New York, stamped with memories of his early career.
In Rickles's world of physical comedy, the box served as a prop for late-night bits, jingling pleasantly on stage. Until one night, it didn't. On a guest hosting gig while Carson took a night off with Bob Newhart, Rickles got a little carried away.
Mid-performance, he hoisted the box like a trophy and banged it on the desk, using its lid as a makeshift drum. To him, it was another gag, another layer of spontaneity. To Carson, watching from backstage monitors, it was sacrilege. When the show wrapped, Rickles left the set not knowing he'd left the king disgruntled. The next evening, Carson returned. He greeted the audience with his trademark smooth delivery, but his mind was elsewhere. His eye caught the box, now noticeably cracked down one side. A hush fell as he paused mid-joke, then interrupted the segment as if a silent alarm had sounded. Sidestepping the expected transition, he turned toward production and muttered into his microphone, voice low but firm, "Where's my box?" Confusion rippled across the studio floor as cameras wheeled to track him. Then, he stood and strode off the stage. Rickles, blissfully unaware, was 500 feet away, rehearsing with the band. Suddenly, security parted, and Carson burst through, a figure of quiet fury marching into a recording studio whose lights bore down like the sun in high noon. Microphone still in hand, he raised the broken box overhead, his gaze slicing through the confusion. "You did this, didn't you?" he boomed. Rickles, frozen in a mix of fear and adrenaline, burst into laughter that trembled at the edge of panic. He raised his hands in mock surrender, stammering through apologies as the cameras rolled for a tense minute. The hall resonated with the crack of that fractured wood and the echo of Carson's incredulous roar. Viewers at home witnessed genuine shock meld with the essence of live television magic. Rickles, ever the showman, tried to defuse the moment with quips, "I was just testing the resonance, Johnny." But Carson's response was an unamused stare that said everything. A single nod from the producer and the chaos ended. Like that, the incident became enshrined in talk show lore, replayed for generations as the night a host confronted a comic with his most prized possession. Yet, unlike other entries on our list, there was no bitter fallout. Rickles continued to appear, though with a cautious reverence, treating the box as if it had been forged from crystal. Carson, for his part, never spoke of the incident in interviews, preferring the silence that follows a punchline delivered at just the right moment. Their on-air antics resumed, but with a newfound undercurrent. Each knew the other's boundary a little better, and both thrived in the space between respect and mischief. For this dynamic, the push and pull between affection and annoyance, captures why Rickles sits atop our list. He wasn't exiled for breaking unspoken rules, rather, he tested the one rule Carson safeguarded above all: sacred trust. Their relationship was a daily tightrope walk, a performance where every barb was an act of love and every laugh a reminder of shared mastery. As the curtains close on tonight's countdown, it becomes clear that Johnny Carson maintained an unwavering standard. Each guest crossed invisible thresholds that sparked his ire, revealing unique boundaries of respect. Whether through ambition, conflicting styles, daring pranks, or heartfelt truth-telling, the stories illustrate one truth: The Tonight Show stage was Carson's domain, and every visitor implicit in its unwritten rules. His charm, wit, and effortless grace on camera concealed a sharp sense of control behind the scenes. For all the laughter and warmth he delivered nightly, Carson demanded authenticity, loyalty, and deference to his craft. Betray his trust, exploit his image, or break his cherished rituals, and you risked vanishing from that radiant spotlight. But what we really witnessed across these feuds is something deeper than hostility or ego-driven vendettas. We saw the human heart of a television legend, a man protective of his legacy and personal dignity. We saw how comedic brilliance sometimes sketched volatility in the margins, where laughter and offense could blur. From Joan Rivers's broken mentor pact to Bob Hope's rigidity, each conflict echoed the struggle for creative ownership. Rich Little's mimicked persona, Dana Carvey's audacious parody, and Oliver Reed's unpredictable firepower all collided with Carson's domain. Lola Falana's bravely spoken truths, Wayne Newton's wounded friendship, Ed McMahon's silent professional truce, and Charlie Collis's faithful shove. And finally, Don Rickles' theatrical destruction of that wooden symbol etched their relationship in living legend.
They were not enemies in the conventional sense, these guests were challengers of status quo and the price of spontaneity. Each tale reminds us that trust in entertainment is fragile, laughter negotiable, and boundaries often invisible until crossed. For Carson, humor was a partnership built on mutual respect, a dance of timing, tone, and unwritten courtesies. For guests, it was an invitation into intimate company where the safety net could vanish in an instant. Tonight's stories reveal that The Tonight Show was more than 12 minutes of monologue and celebrity banter. It was a living organism requiring careful navigation of personality, power, and the tides of public expectation. This peek behind the curtain teaches aspiring performers and curious fans alike what happens when boundaries fall. It highlights Carson's profound humanity, his generosity, his impeccable taste, and his willingness to stand firm when principles mattered. His rulebook contained no formal statutes, yet each guest who ventured onto that iconic couch quickly learned the score. Speak without permission, joke without sensitivity, or treat sacred traditions as props, and you faced swift retribution. And yet, in the tension and occasional fury, there remained an undercurrent of affection, a tribute to comedic mastery. No rancor lasted beyond the applause, no feud entirely eclipsed a shared love for the alchemy of live television. Even fractured relationships found reconciliation in routine, eroded trust could mend if respect resurfaced. In that respect, Don Rickles embodies the paradox of tonight's standout feud. His jabs annoyed Carson, but confirmed their bond. When lightning meets grounded tradition, sparks fly, but both elements need each other to light the stage. Carson's legacy thrives in those moments of friction, those unscripted narratives that reveal character under pressure. As fans, we relish the polished banter and behind-the-scenes drama alike, craving the thrill of what lies beyond. We chase the stories that peel back professionalism to expose raw emotion, surprise, and unfiltered humanity. We celebrate Carson not merely as an entertainer but as a curator of trust and storytelling excellence. His boundaries remind us that genuine connection demands responsibility, whether you're delivering a punchline or hosting an icon. If you take one lesson from tonight's countdown, let it be this: comedic genius is built on mutual respect. It thrives when both host and guest dance on the same frequency, honoring the magic of spontaneity. It stumbles when one oversteps, revealing that even the brightest spotlight can cast dark shadows. We hope you've enjoyed this journey across decade-long memories, backstage whispers, and unforgettable showstoppers. If these stories resonated with you, share your favorite feud in the comments and let us know which surprised you most. And because the night never truly ends while conversations continue, subscribe for more deep dives into television history. Hit that notification bell so you never miss the next revelation from behind the studio doors. From lost friendships to legendary mic drops, the world of late night is never short on drama or heart. We'll be back soon with fresh tales that uncover the human side of your favorite shows and stars. Until next time, keep the lights low, the laughter loud, and remember that every performance tells a story. Thanks for watching and for joining us on this ride through Johnny Carson's most explosive moments. We'll see you in the wings, where the next adventure awaits just beyond the camera's gaze. Let us know your thoughts and tune in next time for more revelations. Tonight's countdown has revealed not just feuds but the fragile fabric of trust. Each guest taught us that personality stronger than any script can shape a show. Johnny Carson wasn't just a host, he was a curator of comedic safety. On his red couch, spontaneity danced with boundaries that few dared define. We sat with him as he guarded his legacy against ambition and mischief. From the mentor who blindsided him to the comedian who shattered a keepsake. We traced the line where admiration met envy in a single gesture. Our journey reminded us that trust in entertainment is an invisible pact. Without it, charisma and talent can quickly sour into tension and silence. Tonight, we saw that backstage whispers can echo as loudly as on-air laughs. We learned that a cracked prop can fracture a friendship in moments. We discovered that respect for tradition can clash with the hunger for novelty. And we understood that boundaries, though unwritten, protect the heart of a show. Carson's ironclad insistence on certain rules revealed his devotion to craft. He sculpted laughter with precision, refusing to allow shortcuts to dull the edge. While his charm bridged worlds, his standards ensured that every punchline landed true. The Tonight Show thrived on a delicate alchemy of respect and irreverence. Guests who embraced the dance sparkled in Carson's glow and left footprints.
Others who stepped beyond the beat found themselves alone in the wings. Yet even in the shadows, no feud endured beyond the echo of applause. That enduring lesson reminds us how fleeting conflict can be in art. Talent, after all, is born from tension channeled into shared creation. Tonight, we honored that lesson by witnessing both the clashes and comebacks. We watched empires of wit rise and, at times, teeter on fragile legs.
We saw how ambition can blind even the brightest stars to courtesy. And we witnessed how genuine understanding can heal a fractured joke. For every banished star, another moment of magic took its place.
The Tonight Show remained a living stage precisely because of that resilience.
Carson's legacy echoes in every late-night laugh that dares to be free.
His influence lives on in hosts who balance mischief with mindful craft. The red couch still stands as a symbol of invitational trust. Future guests step onto that couch knowing the rules carved by Carson. They feel the weight of those hidden thresholds below the studio lights. And they respect the silent agreement that binds a good show to truth. As viewers, we hold that invisible contract too with every click in view. We signal with our attention what entertains us and what alienates us. Carson understood that dynamic power and channeled it into nightly rituals. Rituals give comfort, yet they require bold participants to spark surprises. Those surprises ignite culture, propel careers, and remind us why we watch. We crave real moments, tender or tense, that transcend the script pages.
Our fascination with these stories shows how deeply we connect with authenticity. Tonight's countdown peeled back layers of glitz to reveal raw emotion.
It rekindled our love for storytelling that respects both performer and guest. It asked us to value the unsaid agreements as much as the jokes. It challenged us to consider what boundaries we hold in our own lives.
Which moments do we allow to unfold, and which do we guard fiercely?
Carson's boundaries mirroring our universal need for trust and autonomy.
His life reminds us that success demands both generosity and firmness.
To give space for laughter while defending the sanctity of one's own world.
In closing, may we carry these stories as reminders of thoughtful play.
May we create space for humor that uplifts without sacrificing respect. May we honor the delicate balance Carson mastered on that famous couch. And may we tell stories that breathe with life, not just scripted lines.
If you've enjoyed this journey through laughter's hidden corridors, share it. Let these tales remind your friends that greatness often hides human faults. Subscribe now to join our continued exploration of iconic television moments.
Next week, we'll dive into the unseen struggles of morning show legends. That chapter promises new faces, new boundaries, and fresh revelations. Until then, keep seeking the magic that happens beyond the headline acts.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into late-night history.